Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
And, the news for a long time was, religious clergy
Yeah.
members, that was doing that. And, it's funny because during all that time, and this has been going on for a while now, with like the Catholic Church, for years back,
Mhm.
and people used to ask me, hey, you used to work in the church, you used to be in the rectory and stuff all the time. Did anybody ever, try that? The answer was no. I think
Yeah.
probably part of it was because they knew my dad was a cop.
Behind every struggle, there's a story, and every story deserves to be heard. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Your hosts are Steve Hodgson and licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Every parent wants to believe it could never happen to their child. Every grandparent wants to believe they would see the warning signs. Every family wants to believe that danger comes from strangers. But what if it doesn't? What if the person posing a risk is someone your child already knows? Someone they trust? Someone you trust? Child abuse is one of the most difficult subjects for families to discuss. It's uncomfortable, it's heartbreaking, and for many people, it's easier to believe it happens somewhere else to someone else. But protecting children begins with awareness, because the reality is that those who seek to harm children often don't appear threatening. They may be respected, trusted, helpful. They may be a teacher, a coach, a family friend, a neighbor, a youth leader, or even a member of the family. Today's conversation is not about fear. It's about education. It's about understanding the warning signs. It's about recognizing grooming behaviors. It's about helping children feel safe enough to speak. And it's about giving parents, grandparents, and caregivers the knowledge they need to better protect the children they love. Because one conversation can make a difference. One warning sign recognized can change a life. And one trusted adult who listens can make all the difference in the world. Tonight, we discuss one of the most important responsibilities we share as adults: protecting children, protecting your children from abuse, the conversation every parent and grandparent needs to have. Welcome to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, and I'm here with our own psychologist, beard of knowledge, licensed psychotherapist, Dr. Eric L. Davis. I guess we got to differentiate that so that porn stars don't come after us, but, basically you are. We have a very good episode today, but I want to make sure that people understand why we're doing this before we start. Today we're gonna like the titles and everything said in the little film about child abuse and pedophilia, and this is something very important we need to talk about. It's something that needs to be discussed. Now, we're not going to go into any graphic stuff here. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want people to understand that, we're not going to get graphic, but this is going to be about what this is all about. And what is it? Pedophilic syndrome, is it? Or
Pedophilic disorder.
disorder, okay? And, and also what you need to watch for as a parent, or maybe as a grandparent. Heck, I'm even going to take parent and grandparent out. Anybody. If you see kids, you need to be, aware of what might be going on. So, okay, now, again, a little different. Before we start, I want to introduce our sponsor, Waypost Counseling. Now, instead of playing one of the commercials we create, Dr. Davis does his Well, at this point, what is it, gambling minute?
Yeah.
Call it?
Problem. Yeah. Gambling recovery minute.
Gambling recovery minute. So I've taken two of his shorts, okay, that he does, and I've put them together so that they're consistent. He doesn't introduce it all over again. Um, and he talks about mental health. And understand, if you need assistance, you can get it right from your own home. All you gotta do is dial 317-762-0904 or visit waypostcounseling.com for more information. So let's give it a watch.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Davis with Waypost Counseling, and this is your Gambling Recovery Minute. Here in Indiana, the Indy 500 is a traditional time for many families. Food, racing, friends, and celebration. But for some people, major sporting events can become a gambling trigger. But here's the truth. You don't have to gamble to enjoy the experience. Recovery means learning how to reconnect with the event itself, the excitement, atmosphere, people around you, without risking your money, your peace of mind, or your recovery. Sometimes the strongest win is simply walking away from the bet. Enjoy the race and protect your recovery. Today, many teenagers are being exposed to gambling earlier than ever before. Sports betting ads, online apps, video games, and social media can make gambling look exciting and harmless. But adolescent brains are still developing, especially when it comes to impulse control and decision making. That means teens can be more vulnerable to risky behavior and addiction. The earlier gambling starts, the greater the risk for problems later in life. That's why it's important for parents to talk openly with their kids about gambling, not just drugs and alcohol. Awareness and education can make a real difference. For more information about Waypost Counseling and our gambling treatment program, visit us online at gamblingrecovery.net. Thank you.
So, as we mentioned earlier, we're discussing a topic that many people would rather avoid, but one that every parent, grandparent, caregiver, teacher, coach, and community member needs to understand.
Our goal today is not to create fear or panic. It is education, awareness, and prevention. The more we understand the warning signs of abuse and grooming behaviors, the better equipped we are to protect our children.
Child abuse is something that affects families in every community, regardless of income, education, religion, or background. Unfortunately, many people assume they would immediately recognize a dangerous situation, but the reality is it's often a lot more complicated than that.
Many offenders do not appear threatening. In fact, they often gain trust first. They may be someone a child knows, someone a family trusts, or someone who holds a position of authority. That's why awareness and education are so important.
Throughout today's episode, we're going to talk about grooming behaviors, warning signs, online safety, trusted adults, and what parents and grandparents should know about keeping their children safe.
We'll also discuss what to do if a child comes forward and shares something concerning, and how adults can respond in a way that protects and supports that child.
And as always, this conversation is intended for educational purposes. Now, some of the topics we may be discussing, they could be for some people a little difficult to hear, but this is a conversation worth having because protecting children is everyone's responsibility. Now, the last 2 weeks or so, we've been doing shows about our children and their safety, and this show fits right in that progression. This is about protecting your children from abuse, the conversation every parent and grandparent needs to have. So let's begin. Dr. Davis, why is it so difficult for families to talk about child sexual abuse and grooming?
I think because it's painful, frightening, hard to imagine that someone trusted could harm a child. So families may avoid the topic altogether because they just don't want to scare kids or offend other relatives or believe something that feels unbearable. But silence doesn't protect children. Calm, honest conversations do.
But from the flip side of that too, isn't that making family members uncomfortable that are not doing anything wrong?
Sure, but it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, many people think of stranger danger. I like that. It sounds like something, secret agent man, when they hear this topic. But how often is the threat actually someone the child already knows?
Most often, the child knows the person. Abuse is much more likely to involve a relative, family friend, coach, teacher, neighbor, or trusted adult than a stranger.
So why do you think that is?
I think because of the access, a lot of times abusers are looking for access to kids and, all of the different roles um, that I've been mentioning are, people that have access to others in the community.
And that's sad because we want child to grow up to trust adults,
Yeah.
that they're going to get the right advice. But then again, now this is so prevalent everywhere that
Yeah.
it's got like a big but written next to it too now,
Yeah,
and that's kind of scary. So
it is.
you know, I know neither one of us have to worry about grooming when we talk about our hair, but but seriously, what exactly is grooming, and how does it differ from what most people imagine that a predator actually looks like?
So grooming, it's really a gradual process where the offender builds trust with the child, and often with the adults around the child. So they may give special attention, gifts, secrets, emotional support, but then they will slowly begin to cross boundaries. Predators often don't look scary. They may look helpful, charming, respected, or safe.
Yeah, I mean, we look in the paper, and the news for a long time was religious clergy
Yeah.
members, that was doing that. And, it's funny because during all that time, and this has been going on for a while now, with like the Catholic Church, for years back,
Mhm.
and people used to ask me, hey, you used to work in the church, you used to be in the rectory and stuff all the time. Did anybody ever, try that? The answer was no. I think
Yeah.
probably part of it was because they knew my dad was a cop. That
Yeah.
might have had something to do with it. But there were things going on in the church that we were in, but it was not with children.
Yeah.
We just leave it at that. There were other things going on, but it wasn't children that it was taking place. But yeah, I can see, like you're saying, you suddenly grow a rapport with a pastor. Okay, let's
Yeah.
get away from the Catholic Church. I'll even say with a pastor or something. You're a youth leader,
Yeah.
and you become their pal and everything else. And you start to think it's fairly normal, the touching, etc., and it goes from there. So
Yeah.
you know, now why are children often targeted to positions of trust? As we were talking about, such as teachers, coaches, youth
Mhm.
leaders, family, friends, even relatives.
It's because the trust builds access, or it gives access to the person. So a trusted adult may have private time with the child. They could have authority over the child and credibility with the parents. And that makes it easier to isolate the child, confuse the child, and avoid suspicion.
hmm So here's probably one of the big questions a lot of people probably tuned in for tonight. Okay, because they probably know the answer, some of the stuff we've been
Yeah.
talking about, but we still have to set up the program as we go through. What are some of the warning signs adults should watch for? Let's start with the adult about another adult's behavior around children.
So as far as other adults, you really want to watch for adults who are seeking unnecessary alone time with kids.
hmm
If they ignore physical boundaries, if they communicate privately with the children, or inappropriate sexualized jokes or comments. If they any adult that seems way more interested in the children than the other adults, that might be a good indicator.
I mean, like a little more touchy,
Yeah.
feely type thing too.
Yeah.
I was watching. I mean, most people would notice we were supposed to record yesterday, but I had internet problems, so we watched today. Now I hadn't, as I always say in the show, usually the night before, I researched, just see what's out on the web. Well, by having that extra day, I was able to do so last night. And it just cemented why we're doing this show. It, again, I said that what is it, pedophilic disorder,
Mhm.
pedophilic disorder, and I want people to understand that it said something about how many people possibly have this condition, but a lot of them don't act on it. They seek help and stuff, and
Hmm.
not because they've done it already, but because they know these thoughts that are going through their heads
Yeah.
are not normal thoughts.
Yeah.
So, I want people to understand that, like we've talked about with other conditions. Even someone who's gambling. We talked about
Hmm.
gambling earlier and saw the
Yeah.
commercials for that. You know, this is not something they want to do. Even an addict says, "Yeah, I want to do that, hit a heroin again."
Yeah.
That's it's a disorder. It is a problem that they have. Now, I'm not saying it's okay and
Right.
stuff like that, but I want people to understand that this is a mental disorder that they're
Mhm.
suffering from. Um, so let's switch to the child now. We talked about an adult and what signs to look for. What signs should we look for in the child?
So watch for a child, becoming withdrawn, anxious, secretive, clingy, fearful of a specific person. There could be sleep problems, um, sexual knowledge beyond their age. Maybe they avoid certain places. I mean, really, as a parent, if something seems off, if something just seems off, look into it.
You say it on the show all the time, and it's something that sticks in my head, communication.
Yeah.
And you're not going to know it's off if you're not communicating with your child.
Hmm. True.
And we talked about this, I think, an episode or two back. I lose track, but about how we sat around the table with our
Yeah.
parents and talked at the dinner table. There was no phones, there was no TV or anything going. Communicated with each other,
Yeah.
and that's how you're going to know that maybe little Johnny's acting a little differently, than he is before.
Mhm.
You may notice as your dad, you just go to hug him, and he might pull back.
Yeah.
That little subtle sign is something, you need to be paying attention and not
Yeah.
go overboard either, but pay attention.
I
Yeah.
know a lot of times, like I, I know medical doctors that have said that like a child defecating in their
Mhm.
pants could be a sign of something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, and we won't go into the reasons why, but yeah, makes a lot of sense if you guys
Yeah.
think about it and
Yeah.
give it a little thought. Technology now. When we were growing up, it was one thing. If
Yeah.
somebody was going to connect with somebody that was a stranger, what do we call it, stranger danger? It was outside, when you're in the park or something
Yeah.
like that. Now with technology, that's changed the way offenders gain access to children.
It really has.
Yeah. I mean, what is the show? Chris Hansen's
Oh,
show,
what used to be To Catch a Predator, but now
right. And he's got it now
Takedown or
still
something is
on
what he's
something
doing
else.
now, I
Yeah.
think.
He's got another show. But again, it's the same way. These people are communicating with these kids over the internet,
Yeah.
and you got to watch when you go into chat rooms. All of a sudden, if he says, I'm 14 years old, may not be a 14-year
Yeah.
old you're talking to, and they're going to win trust with that person, want to meet up. And as you see, if you watch any of his episodes,
Yeah.
maybe I'll even, if I remember, put a link in the description here, okay? Because he's on YouTube and stuff now.
Yeah.
So just click the link and watch some of these episodes and understand because Chris Hansen talks to these people
Yeah. He does.
and gets information out of them. And you may think, oh, it's making great TV. No, it's not. It's actually helping educate parents
Yeah.
and law enforcement
Hmm.
on what the motives are and what they're doing behind all of that. So it's a good little show. And
Yeah.
if you like that little push at the end where you get arrested and stuff, that that's really interesting too. But what should parents know then about social media, gaming platforms, messaging apps, or even online grooming?
Online grooming often starts with, attention, compliments, talking about shared interests, um, gaming, humor. Parents should know what platforms their children use, who it is that they talk to, how the privacy settings work, and whether conversations need to be private or hidden.
I was surprised that there is so much talking going on in gaming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I really thought that it would be just, the game that you're playing and, possibly, game conversation. I'm
Yeah.
going to blow up your depot with those guns and stuff, type of thing if they're playing that kind of a game.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that they actually converse with each other.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's something other parents should start to realize too, because they may think, oh, he's upstairs playing a game, on the computer. No, he's actually talking to people
Yeah.
as well as playing that game. Those headphones and stuff they're wearing is to not only communicate the game, hey, I need backup troops here or something like that. They're actually talking to who they think is Jane or John
Yeah.
online as well. So it's interesting. Now, I don't want to pick on them, but occasionally we do hear about teachers having sexual relationships
Mhm.
with students. Why is that always considered abuse, even if the student appears willing?
Because there's a power imbalance. So, I always say the relationship between a child and an adult is always the responsibility of the adult.
Mm-hmm.
you know so like a student, they can't truly consent to a sexual relationship with someone that has authority over them. So even if the student appeared to be willing, it's the adult's responsibility.
And we hear so much that, gosh, it seems at least once a month that you're reading something about
Yeah.
some female teacher who's sleeping with one of the high school students.
Yeah.
And, I I don't know if it's as much pedophilia as it is some sexual fantasy
Yeah, I
that
don't know.
that the teacher is suffering from, that wants somebody younger or so, that risk thing, and I'm not going to talk sexual fantasies, but there are some other different things we are going to talk about in future shows too.
Yeah.
So, understand that, but it just seems strange, and you're right, that there is that control, but if you think about it, probably a lot of the kids are like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I got Mrs. Smith, and type of deal, and it it's still damaging the child.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's 15, 16, 17 years old. It's still, like you're saying, there's a boundary of a relationship that's set up
Yeah.
that child is breaking that boundary.
In therapy, we call it a dual relationship.
Mhm.
There we avoid dual relationships at all cost.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's like, a psychotherapist having the relationship with a client.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the same way. So now if a child comes forward and discloses abuse, okay, and I wanted this one too. What is the first thing a parent or even a grandparent should do?
So the first thing is stay calm. Second thing is believe them. Err on the side of believing them. Thank
Mhm.
them for telling you and make sure they're safe.
Right.
Okay. Then report the concern to the proper authorities.
And if you don't understand that, watch. I I hate to say the Steve Wilkos show, okay, but he handles like topics more like this more often, and you hear so many times him saying, "But the child will say, but I told you,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't believe me or listen to me.
Yeah.
That your boyfriend was molesting me, or that my dad, they're separated. My dad was doing stuff to me, but you didn't believe me."
Yeah.
And then you have the flip parents that say, you can be angry at me all you want, but I'm going to believe my child first.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Yeah.
you say, err on the side of safety.
Yeah.
We really need, if your child comes to you and has that ability to step forward and say, hey, something's wrong,
Yeah.
you need to start looking. It could be something innocent, and then again, could not be, but
Yeah.
you need to be sure.
Absolutely.
And the other person should not be offended. I mean, yeah, I hate anyone to accuse you of pedophilia.
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
but you have to understand that the child is saying it. The parent has to believe their child
Mhm.
because once they don't, then they're not going to report it to anybody else. They're
Yeah.
just going to start thinking about themselves as well. This is who I am. Nobody
Yeah.
believes me and stuff. I guess I'm supposed to do this. So what should they avoid saying? I mean, obviously, we avoid doing is don't go
Yeah.
get your gun and blow the person away.
Well, so the first thing is don't panic. You know, definitely don't blame the child. Don't interrogate the child. Don't
Mhm.
ask leading questions. Don't promise secrecy. That's the thing too. Like, well, you don't want to do that. You don't want to confront the alleged offender right out of the gate, and you don't want to minimize what the child said. You want to treat it as legitimate and you want to move forward accordingly.
Now, I got just a question in your response there. Why wouldn't you say if to get the child to say more if they're only giving you A and B instead of C, D, and E, two that you need? Why would you not say to them, you can tell me it's okay?
Well, no, you can tell them that because it will be okay, but you can't tell them like this will be we
A
will keep
secret,
it a
right?
secret,
Hmm.
because obviously it's not going to be a secret if something's going on.
Right. And at that point too, once you and think about that, folks, too, and I just thought about it when you said that, because what happens when you start reporting this and this all starts to go down, and little Johnny says to you, "But you said it would be our secret,"
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Then the child loses trust in you, and you don't want that to happen. Um, how can parents teach body safety or boundaries, even personal safety, without scaring the kids?
Using simple calm language, like things such as, your body belongs to you, teaching the correct names for body parts, talking about the difference between safe and unsafe touch, um, and making sure kids know that they have the right to say no, and that secrets about bodies are never okay.
I had a friend of mine who I grew up with, and he came across his daughter's diary
Hmm.
one day and not looking for it. He swears up and down he wasn't looking for it. He was getting ready to paint the room and had to move all the furniture. And under the bed was this notebook.
Uh-huh.
And he picked up the notebook just to put it off to the side. And of course, come on, we're all going to do it, folks. Okay, we've all seen those experiments. Should we be reading it? You're going to glance
Yeah.
at it. And he found that there was something going on at the school with one of the school employees,
Yeah.
and his daughter. And now I'm curious because I know what we recommended that he do. What should a parent do in that situation where the child isn't telling you? Okay,
Mhm.
but you find out that something's going on.
I would start with, asking the child about it, to see, what they say. And that's probably where I would start, like if I have reason to believe there could be something going on, the first place I'm going to ask is my child.
Well, it's funny because he told me there were like 12 graphic pages of different times they went.
Really?
And what we had done back at the time, and it's back in like the 80s and 90s, we actually told them bring it to the police.
Yeah.
And that's literally what they did was they brought it to the police. They talked to detectives that were there.
Hmm.
And then they said, okay, can you bring the girl in? But, we have special psychologists and stuff that will talk with her and stuff. And child wasn't young. It was like
Yeah.
15, 16, but they still, didn't want to scare the girl or anything like that. And then went forward from there and actually prosecuted
Wow.
the person from there. And just as a side note, which is kind of interesting, and they found out later on, this person was on the Jerry Springer show. Okay, with his
Really?
fiance. Okay, about something he was fooling around on his fiance and stuff. And the girl had tried to tell her parents, hey, that's the guy from my school. Know
Uh-huh.
him. And yeah, okay, whatever. It's Jerry Springer, okay? Yeah, may rest
Yeah.
in peace. But you don't on that. But you have to be diligent, I guess is the word that I'm really looking for at this. No one's
Yeah.
saying snoop and invade their privacy or anything
Right.
like that. But you know what? You need to be aware.
Yeah. Have your eyes open to
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. You can teach them the best way, you can. But, at a certain point, 14, 15, they're going to start doing what they want to do
Yeah.
at that point. So, grandparents, hello. What can grandparents play in helping protect children?
So grandparents can play a pretty large role. They can, be calm, trusted listeners. They can reinforce boundaries, you know, help notice changes in behavior, support the parents, monitor concerning adults. Really, a grandparent can do just about all the things that a parent could do as far as protecting the child.
And sometimes even more, because I've
Yeah.
noticed that a lot of people have, in fact, my former neighbor in Indiana, who I just, when I moved from, lived next door to me for years, she had
Yeah.
put up a post just this morning on Facebook mentioning that she lost both of her grandmothers in 1 month,
Oh,
and it's tough. I remember when we lost my grandmother, you know, you have a different kind of a bond, which a lot
yeah.
of people have with their grandparents. And, the child or teen or whatever might open up more to the grandparent than they are because, dad's a hothead.
Yeah.
The first thing dad's going to do is going to go down and break the preacher's legs. I mean, amongst other things. Okay. Um, you know, so you're afraid to tell your parents
Hmm.
because your parents are going to overreact. Maybe that calm grandpa or grandma
Yeah.
might be the person they want to turn to. So as a grandparent, you need to be aware. And that's
Yeah.
why I said in even the upcoming video, this is a show for everyone, for teachers. Teachers, you play such an important role.
Yeah.
Okay, not only educating students, but you're with the students for seven,
Yeah.
8 hours, 5 days a week. Okay, you're going to see the child starting to act differently.
Yeah.
So, I hate to add more burden to you, but it's part of your responsibility is to stand out. And, we talked about with Steve last week, um, Steve Lelich, that, there are counselors in the
Yeah.
school that can deal with this.
Hmm.
So, if you're a teacher and you see something going on, go talk to one of the counselors. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll have the counselor will pull the student in and talk to them, and just, not any topic at hand, but just to talk in and find out what's going on, and it's just that way all across the board. As adults, we need to pay attention.
Yeah,
You
we
could
do.
be that neighbor next door, that great neighbor too, that the child talks to, and, maybe even in a single parent home, they
Yeah,
attach to someone else as a parent figure. You're important to figure that out.
absolutely.
So, is there one message you hope every parent and grandparent would take away from a discussion like this today?
Yeah. Every child needs a parent who listens, believes, and acts.
Hmm. Yeah, and doesn't judge and
Yeah.
communicates. I think I would add to that
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
because judge. I'm sorry, folks. You know what? If someone came home and said that, my kid came and said they were being molested, okay, I have to fight that hot-headed feeling. I'm
Oh,
Italian from New York,
yeah.
okay? I'll go break his legs, to call the boys. But no, you know, you have to. Here's what I guess I was trying to say. You have to put yourself in that child's position.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Do.
child is finally got the guts and stuff to come to you and tell you what's happened. But the last thing they need is you going off the handle.
Yeah.
And as you also said, they say, no, come on. And Joe can't be doing that to people. Uncle Joe, come on. He's your uncle. No, you need this. Well, why are you saying that?
Yeah.
Be calm. Take a deep breath. Even if you gotta say, hold on just one second, let me get something. And go outside and punch a wall or something like that. And then come back in and say, okay, I'm sorry, I just had to take care of something. So what is it, what's going on? Get rid of that
Yeah.
before you start. Now it's that time again.
It's the lightning round.
Okay, now today we're going to change things up a little bit. It is the lightning round, but we're not going to do it as a fun lightning round because sadly there's nothing fun about this episode. Yeah, I'm trying every once in a while to be light on it, but it's hard. Okay, now we're going to do what called here an awareness lightning round.
Okay.
Now, as I even said, just there's these little shorts that I'm putting out on Sunday. There's like 3 shorts with questions that I'm answering. And one of the questions was about the lightning round.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like, isn't that making a little fun of the situation? No, it's not. Okay. Number one, it's helping to break up some of the seriousness. Okay. To step it back one step, but also the answers that these people answer. And even like Dr. Davis answers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're so important that you pay attention to those. Because there is so much information that's coming. How many times that I sit here in my hand, okay, and where's my hand there, okay, and the thing, and I start keeping like little track of things like off to the side when it's sitting on the desk here. Why?
Yeah.
Because they've said an answer in the lightning round that I'm going to elaborate on when we're done. It may not have been written out, but I also didn't know they were going to say that. So we have an idea. So please understand the lightning round is not a joke round. It's
Right.
levity a little bit to take it back, but it's also informational and awareness. So I believe all of these, well, a lot of the true or false or fill in the blank. Okay, we got a bunch of them. True or false? Most child abusers are strangers.
False.
True or false? Children often know the person who abuses them.
True.
Grooming can happen online without ever meeting in person.
True.
Boys can be victims of sexual abuse.
True.
See, and that's something we will talk about. See, there's my finger going. Girls can be offenders.
True.
Yep. A teacher having sex with a student is abuse, even if the students say they agreed to it.
True.
Yep. Children sometimes delay reporting abuse for months or even for years.
True.
A child who continues interacting with an abuser may still be a victim.
True.
Predators often spend time gaining the trust of parents as well as the children.
True.
Most offenders do not look dangerous.
True.
Okay, one word. What is the most important thing a parent can teach a child?
Boundaries.
Okay, one word. What's the biggest mistakes adults make when a child discloses abuse?
Not believing them.
Mm-hmm. All right, so last 3 are fill in the blank. Children are more likely to talk when adults
Listen.
are not drinking or something. The most powerful protection for a child is a trusted
Adult.
And finish the sentence. If a child tells you something feels wrong,
Take action.
the only thing I would add is listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let
Believe
them
them.
talk.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt them. Let them talk because they may start telling you A and B right up front.
Yeah.
But there's C, D, and E. But if you make them feel relaxed and comfortable talking, then they're liable to give you that C, D, and E that you need to know.
Yeah.
They might only tell you that there's somebody who's molesting me and may not want to say who it is. But after you make them feel comfortable that, listen, here to help you, we're not going to judge you and stuff.
Yeah.
You're the victim here, etc. Yeah, but he said, the short skirts that I was, no. Okay, he's still, and then as they start to talk, then you may know, or they may even slip and tell you who it is too. So,
Yeah.
you may want to know. Now, I got three final questions before we wrap up tonight's episode.
Okay.
Now, for parents who are watching today, what conversations should they have with their own children tonight?
Well, so make sure that your kids know that they are never going to be in trouble for telling you the truth. Make sure they know no adult should ever ask them to keep secrets about their body, pictures, touching, or private messages. You know, make sure they understand what's normal and what's not.
Should we also add to that they need, when something doesn't seem right, to talk to an adult that they trust
Yes.
right away?
Yeah.
Because they could be being groomed, and you want to actually stop it before it
Yeah.
goes to the abuse too. So they have to, hey, come talk to me. No big deal.
Yeah.
We're just going to help you keep an eye out. Something seems strange, we'll watch and see what's going on. Okay, now for grandparents that are watching today, okay, what role can they play in helping keep children safe?
So be another safe adult, in addition to the parents. Um, listen without shock, reinforce boundaries, speak up when something feels wrong.
Okay, and the final question I got, which is, I think, a really good one. If someone's watching right now, okay, and a lot of people might have even turned this episode on because they saw what this episode is about. Okay, it
Yeah.
came through in the algorithm and they said, wow, okay, yeah, they think or they suspect the child is maybe experiencing abuse. What
Mhm.
they should do right now, and what should they do next?
So the first thing is don't investigate it. The first thing is ensure the kid's safe, document what you observed or heard, and report it to the proper authorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just be calm about it, like we've said
Yeah.
3 or 4 times, because the child is going to, I think, trust an adult more that isn't acting irrational.
Yeah.
That they may not understand. They may actually take that irrationalness as blame towards them.
Hmm.
See, he's angry at me that, I let that
Yeah.
happen to me. So think about your child first, before you go off the deep end. Okay,
Absolutely.
so Dr. Davis, thank you for helping us navigate what certainly is a very difficult conversation we've had here on the show.
While this topic is uncomfortable, awareness and education are some of the most powerful tools we can have to protect children.
I hope that there's one thing the viewers take away from today's discussion is that protecting children isn't about living in fear. It's about paying attention, honest conversations. We talked about that, and creating environments where children feel safe, where they feel valued and heard. So, that might mean you really need to start paying attention to your children.
Yeah. Please remember, children are far more likely to speak up if they know they have trusted adults who will listen, believe them, and support them without judgment.
We hear so many times, where I think we actually asked the question once on a show to someone, why it was so difficult for them to come out.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that they were gay or whatever. It's because they felt like they'd be judged
Yeah.
by the parent,
Hmm.
and they knew the parent was going to judge them and stuff. So, pay attention, folks,
Yeah.
because you're going to help your children tremendously. Okay, so if you're a parent, grandparent, teacher, coach, or caregiver, whomever, we encourage you to continue this conversation. Talk with your children, teach healthy boundaries, even encourage open communication, and never underestimate the impact of simply being a safe person in a child's life. You don't
Yes.
have to be that parent or a relative. You can
Yeah.
be that neighbor that they trust, but be someone that the child feels safe talking to.
Definitely. Sometimes the most important protection a child has is one caring adult who's paying attention to what's going on with them.
That's right. So if today's conversation helps even one family, recognize a warning sign, start an important discussion, and protect one child from harm, then this episode was worth having.
Absolutely. Remember to visit our website at yourlifemattersshowpodcast.com if you wish to learn more about the show, contact us, purchase some official show merchandise, or even apply to be a guest on a future show.
You know, I know I've been sitting the whole time thinking of what Dave's last name was. If you remember, we had the person whose daughter from Canada, the daughter told
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
can you run with me? Okay. And friends with him on Facebook. And someone asked a question, why do you still do the podcast when he has like 52 people watching?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why do it? And he said, and I'm sure this is what he feels the same way as us. If one person
Yes.
can be helped by what he has to say, then he doesn't care if there's 10 people
Yeah.
watching the episode.
Or one.
Right, or even one, just that one that
Yeah.
needs that help. Okay, that's what it's all about. So I want to thank you for joining us with this important conversation. Remember, there's links in the video description. Now I put links for teen and support if you think that someone is being molested or abused. There's information and help information there too. You remember, even if anything else, pick up the phone, dial 911.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah. If you found value in today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who may benefit from hearing it.
The main thing and the word there was share.
Yeah.
I mean, I really believe that. There's no harm. It doesn't cost you anything. We don't even have one of those join buttons or buy a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
There's nothing on us. All we ask you to do is subscribe to the channel, like the video, maybe leave us a comment.
Mm-hmm.
But sharing is so great because you can share this with another parent who we're all people, oh, this one doesn't watch their kids. And so, well, you know what? Share the episode with them.
Yeah.
So all it takes is just share it. Maybe they might watch it and you might help that one person. Even though we're still helping them, you could be part of that. So as always, I ask you guys to remember your life matters.
Yes.
And what we've been saying every week here now, your child's life matters too.
Mm-hmm.
So God bless you all. We hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share the episode so more people can be part of these important conversations around mental health. And remember, your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.